Welcome, students of part 3, form 3, actually, to improve myself. And I'm talking to form 3, that's what I meant, form 3b. Welcome to this video, and this video is about the structure in government, structure of government, and especially about the executive. So we'll call this in a minute or so the ordinary business of government. In your book, you can find this in chapter 3 and then paragraph 3, the executive. And in your book, it is on page 42. And that page looks like this. The structure of government, the executive. You can recognize it by this graph. And this part of the book we're going to look at, to be exact. So take it in front of you. It is on page 43 of your book, if you need it. And it will be very helpful to take it in front of you. If you follow the Caribbean Examinations Council's program, the so-called CSEC, this video might also be helpful for you. The examples I refer to are, of course, those of Curacao. I'm best known with that, and it's most relevant for my students. But if you also follow the CSEC system, this might also be quite helpful for you, those going to school at Bonaire or Saba, Statia, or even Barbados or Jamaica. And at the end of this topic, you will be able to describe, so that is the learning verb, describe the executive within the structure of government. So that's the goal. At the end of this video, you have to describe the executive within the structure of government. So that's the purpose of this video. And I'm going to make 2 more about this specific paragraph 3 of chapter 3 in your book. And you can find it again on page 43. So take it, 42 actually, take it in front of you. And again, I follow the strict guidelines of CXC. So if you're following that program, please watch this video too. We're talking about the executive on page 42 and the so-called executive branch of government conducts the ordinary business of government. So each day, the government, the Prime Minister, Minister of Infrastructure, Minister of Finance has to make decisions. Sometimes things come up that they didn't plan to, or something happens on the island, or there are matters that changed, and they need to make decisions each day. So that's why it's called the ordinary business of government. Decisions, actions that have to be taken each day. Even when they're on holiday, something may pop up and they might have to work. And is known as the cabinet. So the ordinary business of government and these ministers, the prime minister, the other ministers together are called the cabinet. In all the independent Caribbean countries except Guyana, the cabinet consists of the prime minister, who is the chief executive officer, and other ministers of government. The prime minister chooses ministers of government they wish to have in the cabinet, but they're actually appointed. So the prime minister and the other ministers of government, and the prime minister is also known as the chief executive officer. And these ministers are appointed by, or nominated, appointed by the governor general. And appointed, being in Papiamento, I googled it because I actually didn't know. The official word is nombrar. Yeah? So you might never use it, but it's like a school Papiamento word. In Dutch we say benoemd, and in Papiamento nos bisa nombrar. So from a higher power, like the election has been the biggest party, MFK, I talked about that in the former videos. But a person, in this case a lady, who names, benoemt, nombra, the ministers and the prime minister is the governor general. And in our case, that of Curacao, that just recently happened in January, I believe, it was Miss Rosendahl, and she became the Minister of, I believe, Public Affairs, and she had to be sworn in by the governor, Miss Lucille George Wout. So over here, you see Ms. Roosendaal becoming the Minister of Public Affairs. And here you see the other ministers. You see Mr. Cooper, Minister of Infrastructure. You see the Prime Minister, Gilmar Pisas. You see the Minister of Justice. This person I actually don't know who she is, to be honest. And this is the governor, Miss Lucille George Wout, swearing in the new Minister of Public Affairs. By the way, I believe she will be also in the new government. Yeah. So you see this happening also in Kurdistan. So the ministers are appointed by the Governor General. Here were we at page 42. Appointed, nombra, by the Governor General, with one exception in Guyana. Here it goes a little bit different, like you can see here, but not a big deal. Okay, what does the cabinet, the executive branch, do? The prime minister and all the ministers of government, so the minister of infrastructure or the minister of finances, minister of education, what are they responsible for? What do they do during the ordinary business of government? Well, they make policies. So those are like the plans of what they want to achieve in government, what do they want to change, what is their what is their plan? And the plan has to be written down very carefully and put into practice. I ding papimentu I policy tanifica politicanan. Politicanan. Yeah. Again, a school word probably that you don't use every day, but is a very important word. Ding Hollandes, nós chamamos isso aqui beleid. I ding papimentu nós chamamos isso aqui politicanan. So they make policies, the plans of how to improve the country or to keep up with the changing world, and they make policies and programs for the country. They also ensure that they are carried out. So the Minister of Education or the Minister of Infrastructure, they check if the people who work for him, his assistants, his advisors, his civil servants, also carry out that policy. Sigurando. They make sure, ensuring, sigurando, that the policies and programs are carried out. And then papimentu, nós chamamos esse aqui, we call this in papimentu, segurando. So they don't just write it down. They don't just tell the public. They don't just tell this during election programs. They also have to make sure that their plans, their policies are really put into practice, that they are actually carried out. They initiate, they begin proposals for legislation, think papimentu, and they also initiate proposals for taxation. And I've always learned that the word for taxation in papimentu officially is impuesto, but a lot of you guys also say belasting. I know it in papimentu as impuesto, probably this is Spanish too. Pero in papimentu, nós chamamos esse aqui hopimas bianan, also belasting. Yeah. So how you tax, who you tax, how much you tax, and where you don't tax, these are actually pretty important things. So taxation and the height of taxation, or also leaving taxation, stop taxing something or lessening the taxing, is very important for government. It's a tool, an instrument in governance for the executive. And the cabinet is assisted by the civil service. Very important, the civil service, because they do put into practice all the things that the cabinet thought of. They're making policies and they carry them out and implement, put into practice the government's policies, politicanan, and programs. So they're very important. I literally translated it in Google, and here came out Servicio Civil. But when I looked on the internet, another word came up that I saw used more, and that's also Servicio Público. Yeah, they're the civil service, and they put the policies of the government into practice. They also carry out what the cabinet actually wants them to do. Very important word. So the cabinet and the civil service and the ministers and the prime ministers, they put into practice, they put into the world policies, and they try to carry them out by using legislation, laws, new laws, and also taxation, and leaving that away or making the taxation higher or lower. And here we see in a figure 3.1, we see that put into practice. We see 4 levels, and we call them a hierarchy, a hierarchical structure of the executive branch of government, like you can see at the bottom of the figure. And this figure you can also find in your textbook, page 42, over here. You can find it also. And you see, hierarchy means there's a top, there's a bottom, and everybody has to listen to the prime minister, but he's also the chair of the meetings of the cabinet. The ministers, they hold meetings with the prime minister. That sometimes, what we don't have that in Curacao, I believe, but perhaps in bigger islands like Jamaica or Barbados, they have those junior ministers, or like the ministers that work together with the minister and have special departments and special topics to take care of. And to put it all into practice, what the prime minister wants and the minister want, we have the civil servants, and they put into practice the policies and the programs thought of by the prime minister and the ministers. And the civil servants, there are like dozens of them or maybe hundreds of them in some of the Caribbean islands, and they put into practice the plans and the programs and the policies that the prime minister and the ministers thought of. And again, this all is a hierarchical structure, meaning the civil servants, without bias, without having actually opinions of their own, have to put into practice what the ministers and the prime ministers thought of. So the civil servants have to listen to the prime ministers and have to listen to the prime minister. They are not allowed to have ideas and opinions of their own. They work for the ministers and the prime ministers. Well, I hope you found this helpful. Here you see all the key points of this paragraph, of this part of paragraph 3 of chapter 3, and we specifically looked at the executive or cabinet compromises the prime minister and other government ministers, other cabinet ministers, and we also talked about what their work entails and what are civil servants and how important they are for putting the policies and programs into practice. And we're working on describing the executive within the larger structure of government. If you have questions, you can ask them below. If you want to subscribe, you can also do that below. Let me know during class if there was something that wasn't very clear, or you can improve my Papiamento, or you have a better word for civil servants. Let me know. And again, I followed the program of CXC and the so-called CSEC program. For now, enjoy your day, weekend, or time off, and I hope to see you all during class very soon.